These are going to be my strongest opinions about the most amazing versus most disappointing moments in the Walking Dead series. So like most people, I kind of quit around season 7. I did not quit after the first episode. I got through the whole season. I'm like, all right, let me give this a chance, see where they're going with it. Really don't like the character of Negan, regardless of whether or not he plays a villain in the show. And I read somewhere that he was getting a redemption arc, and I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. That was pretty much my attitude. I was like, I'm not doing this. Y'all have fun without me. And I felt pretty happy with that decision. I was like, you know what? I like seasons 1 through 6. I sort of like some of season 7. We'll just leave it at that. Well, I continued watching, and you know what? I'm so glad I did. I think there was a lot of awesome stuff that I was missing out on. Basically, seasons 1 through 6 are just a whole different vibe and feel and just overall show than seasons 7 through 11. So if you kind of can't make that jump, then I don't think finishing the show if you stopped is something you want to do. Some criticisms I think are unrealistic. So for example, people are like, oh, it's only good up till season 3, it's only good up till season 4, you know, things of that nature, and talking about the characters. And, you know, I only liked this character in season 2 or season 3. And it's like, okay, but if you have the same character in season 8 that you did in season 2, then the character didn't grow. Like, is that realistic? No, it's not realistic. I'm going to start with most amazing moments first. This list is pretty random. I tried to put it in an order of my favorites, and I just really failed to do so. I love all of it. I love all of it. So the first amazing moment on my list is when the group escapes Dr. Jenner and they blow up the CDC. That was absolutely incredible. Great way to have a series finale, especially for a show that's brand new. The first season is only 6 episodes because they didn't know how popular this was going to be. And don't get me wrong, those 6 episodes are some pretty concise storytelling. It doesn't waste your time, but I do wish they did a little bit more with season 1. But that was still just such a great moment for the characters. You also really see how much they're willing to fight, the desperation that they feel when Dr. Jenner basically locks them up. Dr. Jenner basically saw a lot of people around him opt out of this zombie situation. And you know what? If there was a zombie situation, I would probably want to opt out too. I'm not gonna lie. I am not much of a survivalist, so unless I was with the right group, I would not make it very far. But unfortunately, his mentality basically becomes that he should be able to make that decision for other people. I also love the fact that he tells Rick a secret, and we don't get the secret until basically I think the end of the next season. I also like when he delivers that iconic line where he finally gives in to Rick and he lets the group go, and Rick says that he's grateful, and Dr. Jenner says the day will come when you won't be. He has just completely given up and expects other people to give up. So even if Rick didn't go through the things that the group ends up going through, Dr. Jenner just has it in his mind, there's no hope. No matter where you go, no matter what group you're part of, no matter how hard you try, it's not worth living anymore. So what I personally found most interesting about those scenes was just the absolute contrast between someone who wants to completely give up and someone who is a survivalist and is going to fight for the people around him to survive. And then of course you have the explosion. Can't go wrong with a good explosion. The next scene that I thought was amazing was when they executed the barn walkers at Herschel's farm and found Sophia. Everything about that sequence was amazing. The acting, the way it was shot, like every moment was perfect, leading up to finding Sophia and then seeing that tension in the group of not just the grief of this loss, but also this moment of realizing we've risked so much looking for this girl and she was in the barn this whole time. That was just so well done. Now, I do get people who say that Shane should have handled the situation a little bit differently, and if he wasn't so aggressive in the things he was trying to do and accomplish, you know, it might have gone differently for him. So as far as Shane's storyline is concerned, I do have empathy for that perspective, but I am just so glad that Shane did that. It was also incredibly important for Herschel's development because he was still very much in denial about what was going on and was essentially trying to keep these people safe so they could get a cure. And that's just not happening. And something had to occur to make him see that. He had been very protected on his farm from having to see what all these other people have seen. Could there have been a better way? Sure, maybe, I don't know, but I loved the barn scene. My third most amazing moment is the start of the first dictatorship. So basically there are like 2 separate dictatorships. And the first one does not last very long, but I love the speech that he gives at the end of season 2. He comes completely clean about what happened with Shane. He does not play games. He doesn't hold back anything. He explains exactly what happens. And he also just makes it clear, like, look, I'm going to lead the group, but if you want me to lead the group, then I'm going to be in charge. The problem is there are certain situations where that doesn't quite work, which is why the first dictatorship didn't last for very long. But that speech was so powerful, and it showed not just how much the group had been through together and how close they had become, but also how much of a leader Rick had to become. Because initially he didn't really sign up for this, he just kind of started making decisions, which immediately put him in conflict with Shane. If you want to make decisions in a scenario like this, then yeah, you're not going to be able to go to the group with every single thing and be like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So I do think it was a very necessary speech, but really just there are certain moments where Andrew Lincoln's acting as Rick just absolutely shines, and that was one of those moments. I guess my fourth most amazing moment is kind of an entire episode, but it's when Herschel saves as many people as he can from the outbreak. It's a disgusting episode, and it's nasty, but I mean, just seeing him step up after everything he's been through and his own struggles, just putting himself out there and doing everything that he can, using his knowledge to help people, and then of course seeing the toll that takes on him, all of that was just absolutely incredible. The makeup artists they have on this show are just, they are something else. These got to be the most talented people in the damn industry. And that episode is a great example of that. But that was really a time when Herschel just outshined everybody. He'd already been a character who contributed a lot in a lot of ways, but this was really a moment where Herschel and only Herschel could do what he was doing at the time. And he really just did the best that he could. And I think for most characters on The Walking Dead, even if I think that they're absolutely awesome characters, there are very few times where they genuinely inspire me. That was an episode where I truly felt inspired by a character. My sixth most amazing moment is when Rick rips the throat out of one of the claimers. Now, this was not a moment where he was just randomly attacking people. Like, this was a moment where he was pushed. And if you push Rick, especially if you threaten his kid, he's gonna react. So I think what made that scene so amazing is, like, you knew Rick was gonna snap. You knew he was gonna do something. You just didn't know what. And the first time I saw the scene, it was just so completely unexpected. It was just done in such a fantastic way. It was brutal, it was shocking, and a lot of viewers viewed it as kind of like a turning point for Rick because they've seen him fight before, they've seen him fight through walkers, they've seen him strategize and go toe-to-toe with some enemies before, but they really hadn't seen him be quite that vicious in person with fighting somebody else. Now, the sixth most amazing moment, I'm kind of a little bit torn on whether or not it should even make my list, which is Merle's death. So there are a couple things that I really like about this scene. For one thing, Merle makes a very clear choice, knowing that it might end in his death. And he does it because he's trying to turn around and make a good decision. So to see that from that character was absolutely incredible. But it's also just so unforgettable when Daryl finds Merle as a walker. It's just a moment that just really, really stands out to me. It's such a memorable moment, and I think that's why I wanted to include it on my list. The seventh most amazing moment is when Michonne saves Rick from the governor. Rick has a lot of skills to bring to the table, but he's not that good with hand-to-hand combat. In fact, a lot of times with hand-to-hand combat, he needs help from somebody else. And this was a fight with no exception. He needed somebody to step in, and the way Michonne stepped in was absolutely perfect. She's such a great character. It was an absolutely iconic scene. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I do want to just add a quick note about people criticizing the next episode where Rick is basically knocked out on the couch. Let's see you get the crap beaten out of you and see how well you handle it, okay? Since you're so big and bad and tough. I feel like if you're beaten that bad, needing to take a break for a minute and kind of recover is a pretty normal reaction. Like, I don't know what what are y'all talking about that he needs to just get up. I swear, just wildly unrealistic. But anyways, I'm glad that the governor went the way that he did because he was a character that really deserved like an iconic ending. Like he was crazy, and we've spent so much time on him as a character being an enemy of our group. So it would have been really frustrating if like he got this casual death or a death that was like off screen or something. So the fact that it was Michonne was just absolutely perfect. The eighth most amazing moment is when Carol saves the group from Terminus. I know a lot of fans disagree with this point. I think that at the time, Rick was absolutely correct to send Carol away. She did kill 2 innocent people. She might have had good intentions. She might have been trying to save the group. I get it. But at the end of the day, she killed 2 innocent people. If you're the leader of the group and the buck stops with you, you can't just look the other way on that. What was he supposed to do? Wag his finger at her and be like, okay, well, don't do that again. So I think he was absolutely 100% in the right. Now, it would be a little bit different if Carol had a reason to believe that killing these 2 innocent people would 100% protect the rest of the group. She didn't have that information. She did something desperate as a maybe. You can't kill 2 innocent people and be like, I did it to save the group, based on a maybe. So I 100% agree with Rick's decision to send her away. But I think she also earned her place back in the group when she came in like a total badass to save them when they needed her. And I think at that point it was absolutely appropriate for him to take her back. At this point, we'd already seen quite a bit of character development for the character of Carol, and seeing her step up in this way was just absolutely amazing. My 9th most amazing moment is when Carol kills Lizzie. I have such a love-hate relationship with that episode. But when I say it's an amazing moment, I mean like the way it was done. Like I liked the way that it was filmed. Now, when I say it's an amazing moment, I really mean the way that it was filmed. Like, it's a dark moment. Like, I'm not saying like it's a good thing that it happened, okay? Like, that's not what's being said at all. For me, what makes that moment so amazing is that Carol, she's already been someone who's going to look at a situation and go, okay, this is what I think I need to do, therefore I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we've already seen that from Carol, but seeing her in this situation realize that she has to kill this kid who in a way is innocent because they clearly don't seem to understand what they're doing. That was a big moment for Carol. The way it was shot was absolutely incredible. And you also just, for me at least, I felt so much for Lizzie in that moment. Like, she's clearly disturbed. She's clearly not understanding what happened. But from Carol's perspective, or even the perspective of the audience, like, she has to do something. It's not just about, oh, this kid's crazy and I can't really stop and give her psychiatric care. It's, we have Judith, and this girl killed her younger sister to make a point. You can't just have her around Judith and just hope it works out. She couldn't afford to just keep this kid around Judith. My 10th most amazing moment was meeting King Ezekiel. That was so awesome. I think he's a great character. I don't care. I think he's a great character. I do. Get over it. One thing I find hilarious about a lot of reactors is saying that King Ezekiel reminded them that this is from a comic book and it all felt so fake, especially with the fact that he has this pet tiger. Okay, so first of all, this kind of act that he puts on where he not only calls himself a king, but speaks in kind of like medieval time lingo sometimes. Like, I have somewhat mixed feelings about that, but I also feel like he's trying to present hope to people, and he's trying to take care of his community in a particular way. I just think you're nitpicking a little bit too much if you have a problem with King Ezekiel. Another thing people take issue with is the fact that he has a pet tiger. A lot of leaders had big cats as pets. So really, you could call that a throwback. Like, it's not that crazy that he would have a tiger, especially if he came from a zoo and had a relationship with a tiger. And as far as his act of being King Ezekiel, like, it's really just something that people are choosing to participate in. I don't see the harm in it. Now, I do think some of his decisions are not the greatest, but I really, really like the character, and meeting him was so cool, especially watching Carol react to him the first time. The 11th most amazing moment is when the communities agree to go to war with the saviors. What comes after is amazing. Everybody jumped in. Everybody played their role. Certain things were not executed very well. I'm gonna say that. But watching everyone come together and the confidence and the planning and the dedication to what they were about to do, absolutely incredible. The 12th most amazing moment is when Daryl kills Morales. Now, a lot of people look at the scene like, okay, you're going to war, you're going in to kill everybody, therefore, whether this guy's Morales or not, you need to kill him. So Morales was the character that was in like the first 2 or 3 episodes of the show, and he basically leaves the group when they want to go to Fort Benning, and he's like, no, I'm going to take my family to Alabama and meet family over there. I have to do what's best for my family. He doesn't get very far and ends up with the Saviors, and then, of course, when Rick and the group are attacking the Saviors to try to fight for their freedom, he runs into Morales. I feel like the fact that Morales has a gun pointed at Rick, yeah, they're having a dialogue. yeah, they're catching up with each other, but Morales has clearly made his decisions, and he's going to stay with the Saviors, and it's a decision that has worked out with him thus far. But at the end of the day, in this particular situation, he still had a gun on Rick. You can't get mad at Daryl for intervening and protecting Rick. But also after the fact, when Rick tries to say, hey, that was Morales, I love how Daryl responds and saying it doesn't matter. Because the thing is, if you choose to throw in with people who are basically trying to conquer other groups and beat and kill them into submission, you can't get mad if you're in the line of fire when those groups of people fight back. And my 13th and last most amazing moment from The Walking Dead was the Pike scene. Everything from the moment they start walking up that hill to the moments that Siddiq's speech ends is absolutely perfect. I know a lot of people focus on the Pike scene itself. I think the moments after that where Siddiq gives his speech and you see a little bit of flashes of what happened in the barn, that was all incredible. All of it, every single moment was absolutely perfect. It was so terrifying, and it was such a great way to show what types of villains the group is actually dealing with now, because it really did up the ante. Not to mention how difficult it's going to be to take on this group because of how they operate. It was heartbreaking. It was dramatic. It was insane. It was unexpected. Well, not completely unexpected for me, because I'd seen like pictures of the Pikes, not up close, as memes for years before I actually watched the scene itself. So that kind of took away some of the shock value. But even then, even knowing once they walked up the hill what was coming, like, it was still so effective and so incredible. That is cinematography. That is cinematography. There were a few more moments I wanted to include in my amazing moments, but I think I'm going to leave it at that. So let's move on to disappointing moments. And the first one on my list is when Andrea refuses to kill the governor. Now, I can respect that she was conflicted. I can respect that she was in a situation where she felt safe and she felt like she could talk some reason into this guy and didn't want to see the warning signs. I get that. You know, if I was living in a zombie apocalypse and I found a town with walls that were guarded and I felt safe, I would probably want that to continue. So I don't hate her for it, but it was absolutely disappointing. It's like, you've been with Rick and Carol and all these other people long enough that you should know if they're telling you, hey, this guy is crazy and we can't trust him, you need to do something about it because you're the only one who can. I feel like all of that should have carried a little more weight with her. So I get it, but it was still frustrating. My second most disappointing moment was when Eastman sacrifices himself to save Morgan. That episode overall had such a weird reaction from fans. I feel like there just weren't many people who were in the middle. It was either you loved it or you hated it. I think it was a great episode. When I first saw it, though, it felt very misplaced. There was so much else going on, and we had all these other questions about what's happening in Alexandria and whether or not these people are going to survive and who these people are who are attacking them. I kind of feel like we could have gotten a little bit more from the wolves. Like, for a group that did that much damage, I kind of feel like we could have explored that a little bit more. But anyways, I actually loved the episode with Eastman. For most of the slower episodes that kind of give you a backstory, it's not that they're bad episodes, it's just they're kind of placed throughout the season after episodes that are so intense and so in-depth or end on a cliffhanger, where it's like the audience just doesn't have the patience to sit through this slowdown episode. They want to get to the answers. They want to get to the next thing. So for me, it's the effect on the pacing of the season. But I think that the episode with Eastman was a great episode, a great character. He kind of, even as well-intentioned as Eastman is, and even as much as he helps Morgan, he kind of sends Morgan down the wrong path. And watching Morgan come out of that is an interesting journey to see. I think Morgan's a fascinating character. But Eastman in particular, like, I really liked his character. And to see him go like that was just crazy. But at the same time, I kind of understand Morgan freezing in that moment. It's like, it's beautiful in a way, but it's also just so frustrating. You introduce us to this character, and he's so awesome, and he has such an influence on a character that so many fans love, and then that's it? Really? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think he would have gone on to become a part of any of these other groups. He would have stayed in his cabin. He wouldn't have gone anywhere with Morgan. It is what it is. But so if we just left him alive, maybe we never would have known what would have happened to him, and there would have been no closure on the character. I don't know. I would have preferred to leave that open-ended. I would have much preferred the storyline of Morgan eventually leaves and goes to find the rest of the group, and Eastman just continues to live in his cabin, and that's all we really know about him. The third most disappointing moment was the death of Beth. So Beth's whole storyline from the moment she's picked up is just very bizarre to me. Dawn kind of has a similar mindset to the Saviors of we bring people in, whether they want it or not, and we save them. And because we saved them, they owe us. That's pretty much Dawn's mindset. So it's very frustrating to see Beth separated from Daryl, and then she's basically trapped with these people and has to kind of tolerate these situations until she finds a way out. And then when she finally seems like she's going to be back with Rick's group, this happens. But at the end of the day, what makes it most frustrating is that it's ultimately on Beth. You know, y'all want to get mad at Dawn. Like, I'm sorry. If you stab somebody in the neck, they're going to react. And that's exactly what happened. Beth stabbed Dawn in the neck, and Dawn immediately reacted and shot her. Beth could have made it out of that hospital. Now, in that moment, yes, she was demanding Noah. Noah's freedom matters just like anybody else's. So I'm not saying that it's not worth fighting for or not worth fighting about, but what's done is done. Like, that wasn't something that was going to resolve anything for Noah. I mean, I guess in the end, because Dawn was killed, she did kind of get Noah's freedom, but at the sacrifice of her own life. And it's just so frustrating. Everyone gets mad at Dawn for that moment, but you can't blame somebody for reacting to being stabbed. I'm sorry. If you want to get mad at Dawn for self-defense, that's a little bit weird. Speaking of Noah, the fourth most disappointing moment is Noah's death, which is entirely 100% Nicholas's fault. And that's what makes it the most frustrating. Like, it's one of the most graphic deaths in the series, and Glenn is standing there watching it in absolute horror, and it truly is a graphic, horrific scene. But the fact that it was so preventable, with just a little bit of using our listening ears, with just a little bit of cooperation, that could have been 100% avoided. 100% avoided. Nicholas sucks. And I don't understand why Nicholas is alive, because shortly after that, doesn't he go and attack Glenn, and Glenn just kind of covers for him? Like, that's crazy to me. Speaking of Glenn, the fifth most disappointing moment is Glenn's fake death. So Glenn and Nicholas are on the garbage dumpster. Nicholas wants to give up, shoots himself on the head, falls on top of Glenn, and it looks like walkers are eating both of them. Now, what ends up happening is they are eating Nicholas, and Glenn's able to crawl under the dumpster and survives this whole ordeal. But viewers are very much left with the final moments of an episode insinuating that Glenn was eaten alive. I hate directors who want to mess with the audience that much. Like, they took his name off the credits for a couple of episodes. They made the actor like hide for a couple of weeks or whatever it was. Like, they really tried to sell this. And it also goes to show how primed you are as a member of the audience to just accept what you're being shown. Because once I knew what happened and I went back and watched that scene originally, it's actually pretty obvious that they're eating Nicholas and Glenn hasn't been touched yet. So I do think it was interesting to see how susceptible I was as an audience member. But still, I hate it when directors do that. Like, mess with the audience by dropping Easter eggs and foreshadowing way before we see something. Like, there are ways to mess with an audience, and that's just not it. Look, I don't know what it's like to be a director or a screenwriter or any of that stuff. Probably never will. I'm sure it's a lot of fun, but find other ways to entertain yourself. Do not mess with the audience that much. I also feel like that moment took away so much from Glenn's actual death, because so many of the fans had already mourned him and then realized that the showrunners were just assholes. That scene was just too much. It was just too much. It's kind of like how angry I am with the people behind Stranger Things. I loved Stranger Things. I was obsessed with Stranger Things. And we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited. And then we have all these articles from the Duffer Brothers saying, oh, we want TV to take forever. We want people to have to wait years and years. Okay, cool. Peace. I'm out. If you want to mess with me that much, then I don't care about your show anymore. I just don't. I will literally go catch recaps. I'm not going to watch the last season of Stranger Things on principle. Now, if I can't get the entertainment I want as quickly as I want it because of things that are out of your hands, that's a whole different scenario, and I can accept that. But if you're going to do things intentionally to piss off your audience, you don't get to complain when you lose your audience. Considering how much of the audience they lost when they killed off Glenn for real, it's amazing that they made it to 11 seasons, but the amount of spinoffs that this show has. I did not know that the walk-off spinoff game was this strong. There are so many spinoffs of this show. It's crazy. Fear the Walking Dead has 8 seasons. Did you know that? Daryl Dixon is about to start season 4. What? You guys gotta stop. I can't watch TV all day. Please stop. The 6th most disappointing is when Lizzie kills her sister. Now, I do think everything that happened after Lizzie kills her sister was amazing from a storytelling perspective, but it was just... my heart just broke for Mika so bad. It's like she knew something was wrong with her older sister, but she was still in such a vulnerable situation. And then it's also hard not to place all of this blame on Carol and Tyrese, because it's like they both had clues that Lizzie was not okay. Maybe they didn't think that she was in quite this state, but they knew that she wasn't okay, and they didn't do anything about it. But that's the thing. They also just don't have all these resources to just watch her all day and make sure she doesn't do anything crazy. So I think Mika's death played a great role in terms of the overall story at that point, but it was just so sad. I kind of wish that another character had been introduced and that was the person that Lizzie killed instead of Mika. A lot of fans consider that episode to be like the darkest episode in the series, and I kind of agree. That was rough. The 7th most disappointing moment is when Maggie refuses to kill Negan. That was such a waste. That was such a waste. Okay, now with Rick, I'm frustrated with Rick too, but Rick's situation is a little bit different. So Rick tells Negan several times that he's going to kill Negan to his face. And if Rick says he's going to kill you, he is going to do everything possible to follow through on that promise. But before him and Negan have kind of their final showdown, Carl dies, and one of his final wishes is that he does not kill Negan. So in Rick's case, I can somewhat understand, okay, your son had a dying wish and you chose to honor that. I can deal with that. The whole storyline with Maggie is just absolutely insane. As soon as Negan is introduced on the show, he kills 2 favorite characters. So everyone's out to get him. Everyone's immediately making plans to kill the guy, etc. But Maggie in particular. Negan is captured and not killed by Rick, which infuriates Maggie. She goes and confronts Michonne at Alexandria and demands to be let in to kill him. And it is so cliche. It is so... I hate this scene so much. She gets past Michonne. She pulls him out of the cell. She's gonna kill this guy. And then she kind of looks him up and down and goes, oh, I can see that you're suffering enough already, so I guess I won't kill you. What a stupid scene. What a stupid scene. That is so you're suffering enough already because you're in jail, so I'm not going to kill you. What the hell is that? You know what I mean? If Maggie wasn't going to follow through, then give her a different story arc. Like, have a moment where she, like, sees the light and decides to forgive Negan. But to have her go see him and be like, oh, you're suffering enough because you're in jail? Get out of here. What the hell is that crap? What moron thought that was a good... I don't accept it. I don't accept it. No, I'm not okay with this. I will never be okay with this. I can't. The 8th most disappointing moment is when Maggie is searching for Glenn. We're kind of bouncing all over the place. This is several seasons before. And she finds the bus that left the prison and finds that it's full of walkers, and she has to go through and find out if Glenn is there. Now, this bus was trying to pull away as bullets were flying all over that prison, so yes, it's reasonable that someone or a couple of people received fatal injuries as they were on the bus, and then, of course, killed everyone. So it's not that it's impossible that the people on the bus did not survive. But I just really wanted them to, okay? I really wanted them to. Like, at least some of them. Or what if they come across a stopped bus and like there are people hiding in the woods that come out and see, oh, Maggie, thank goodness you're here. This is the horrible things that happened on the bus and we lost 3 people. And I'd be, oh my goodness, you lost 3 people. Well, that's better than a busload. Like, why couldn't it have been something like that? All of them, none of them could make it. Really? I just really hated that. The 9th most disappointing moment is when Maggie goes to live with Georgie. Now, the actress wanted off the show to go do something, and she eventually comes back, and I get it, and things happen, and you have to kind of do something with the storyline to explain why that character is not on screen for an entire season, or a couple of seasons, or however long it was. And the whole she went to go live with Georgie thing, if we knew more about Georgie, that might have made sense. Oh, we just go around and we stalk people, and if we find out that we really like them, we bring them back to our group, and we have books about how to build communities and all that kind of stuff. Like, give us a little bit more than that if you're going to have one of our main characters who's been with us in seasons 2 go off and live with this random ass person. There couldn't be a little bit more explanation for this. People who get paid to write scripts, this is what you came up with. She went to live with Georgie. Yeah, okay. The 10th most disappointing moment is when Carol immediately demands Daryl's attention after she thinks she kills Connie. So Carol gets to a point where she is on an absolute warpath for Alpha, and she's extremely emotional at this time, which is completely understandable. For those complaining about her level of emotion at the time, I think that's a little bit unrealistic because she's going through a lot, okay? Cut her some slack, she's been through it. Carol does something reckless and everybody follows her, and then there's this explosion and some of them don't make it out, including, at least we think at first, Connie. I can forgive Carol's emotion. I can forgive her doing something ridiculous and spontaneous and crazy because she's just desperate to get to this person. I get that. I accept all of that. But if you mess up and you kill somebody that somebody else cares about, you don't get to go demand their attention, demand a certain response from them to satiate you. That was so selfish. I can deal with emotion, I can deal with struggling through loss, I can deal with being on the warpath because you want to make something right, but the whole thing with her screaming and crying at Daryl, nope. No, leave Daryl alone. Leave Daryl alone. As far as you know, you just killed someone that he really cares about and he owes you something right now? Simmer down, bitch. No, absolutely not. And the 11th most disappointing moment for me was when they're attacking the savior camps, and apparently they have had zero conversation about what to do if some of these savior workers surrender to them. And there's this huge debate about, do we just kill them all? Do we take hostages? Aren't we the bad guys if we just kill them all? You guys didn't think to sort out that conversation before you started? You want to wait until you're on the middle of the literal battlefield? Honestly? Really? Seriously? Is this a joke? A serious question. Is this a joke? Because it feels like a joke to me. There are so many things. There are so many instances where this group just has a plan and they start executing it. And then there are just like 5, 10, 15 contingencies that never even crossed their pretty little minds. And that stuff drives me crazy. This group, regardless of what season we're talking about, generally, they're just not that good at planning. They're not that, there are certain things that they just refuse to think through. And this was one of them. And I get it. It caused conflict among the characters. Like, you could have had conflict anyways. There could have been an agreement of how they're going to handle this situation. And there could have been someone who pushed back on that in the moment. Like, you still could have had conflict. But for it to be like something that never occurred to them to discuss or make a decision about, give me a break. Okay, so those are my strongest opinions about the most amazing and disappointing moments from The Walking Dead. There's a lot of other stuff I cover, so I probably won't be touching on any entertainment topics here again for a while. But let me know what you think of this video. Do you disagree with any of my picks? And if so, which moments would you have picked?